Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. We're just going to have a nice casual chat. I have some things to discuss regarding some super chat questions that some people asked me and I never really got a chance to get to. So I will be answering those questions and then we're just going to chat and get to know each other. I noticed I got over 100 new subscribers on my channel, so welcome. If you are joining me tonight and you want to know a little bit more about me, then this is our chance to get to know each other. I did get about 4,000 friends on my Facebook page. So what I spoke about in my previous video is very true. People are uniting around the world. They are reconnecting. And so I'll talk about that in my thoughts and some of my experiences in the past few days. I am still a little sick, so I have a little bit of a low energy. So if you can tell something's going on with me, that's probably what you're sensing. But yeah, cheers to a night of just getting to know each other. So I see everybody here. Yay, welcome everybody. Yes, Mai Gavanen. And for those of you who are new to my channel, Mai Gavanen was actually in JRR Tolkien's writings of what the elves would say to greet others. And it's also in the movies if you're a big Lord of the Rings fan. And it just is like a deep form of respect in meeting people. And well, that's kind of world I want to live in, where we would say Mai Gavanen to each other. So welcome. And I see a lot of comments. So I am going to just get to the two questions, actually 3 questions that super chat questioners left for me. Thank you so much for helping to support this channel, by the way. So Sean, he asked some really good questions here. Well, at least one, but J Lord asked 2. So Sean asked this: how does one be ready for meeting higher beings? So he wants to know, how do you prepare yourself to meet higher beings than what maybe Earth civilization is at? Well, there's a lot of parts to this as far as how I see it. First of all, you have to remember that we are in a multi-dimensional reality. So when you go into quantum physics and you learn about what physicists say about space and about just this universe in general, you learn that there is an availability of many different universes, parallel universes, and ultimately they are discovering that consciousness, or what we think of as awareness, just being aware of our thoughts, is basically all that there is in a quantum type of world. The idea that all there is really just energy. So we are just vibrating forms of energy, and that's what gives rise to all the states of matter that we see in the universe and what plays out. So I'm very much a big believer that everything does come from the mind. However, I also believe in a balance, that there is a reason for it to materialize, and we should keep in mind that the physical world is just as sacred to us as well, because it allows us to know ourselves on a deeper level. And so the way I look at it is that the way that you meet or prepare yourself to meet higher beings, since we are in an energetic type of universe, is that your vibrations actually have to align to theirs. Otherwise, they simply won't deal with you, or you won't be able to see them. And if you do see them, it's really just kind of occasional glances or glimpses of them. It is maybe some happenstance type of meetings. But in order for the world to have full-on communication with higher beings, then they have to feel that humanity can align to their mindset and their consciousness to allow them to come into the world and to be one with humans and to exchange, resources, secrets of the universe, knowledge, what they have discovered. This is all part of what's happening. We are moving into that timeline where we are preparing ourselves consciously to meet these advanced beings. So that's kind of what's happening, and I can really feel that is going on. I will say that I do believe, and I have spoken about it before on my channel, that there are advanced beings already here on Earth, but they do not communicate to all of the masses because not everyone is ready or prepared. We still have many people, especially those in the exclusive types of religions where they view outsiders as a threat to their religion or to their beliefs. We still have many people who would fear some kind of outside intelligent life, because to them, anything outside of humans would be maybe a demon. So it's kind of dealing with that. How to prepare to meet these higher beings is really, it plays on with the idea that there is really nothing in the universe except your own awareness and consciousness of the universe itself. So the way to prepare is to go deeper within yourself and rise to the consciousness level, to that higher dimension of consciousness of where they are, and simply align to their values. So you would have to kind of get imaginative here. And we have a lot of wonderful movies and books, and we have many scientists like Michio Kaku who helps us realize this. We have to ask ourselves, what would an advanced civilization look like on Earth? What would advanced beings want truly for humanity? What would they do on their planets with one another? These are the types of questions that humans are going to have to ask themselves to see if they are really prepared to embrace these types of beings in their consciousness field. Otherwise, they'll just be a fight between ideologies of what is right for humans. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with. So how to prepare for them is really about raising your own consciousness level, your awareness, your vibrations through daily practice of really practicing good values that help you to raise your consciousness of others. I would say that you have to get a quantum psyche, and I will be doing a video about that, because in order to move past the material mindset, you have to understand the energetic or unseen reality, which is really the true reality when you get into the quantum world. So you have to start to embrace a quantum psyche within you to actually raise the levels of where advanced beings are, because they already are knowing how to manipulate and deal with the unseen energies. That's how they make their ships, not able to be seen. They play with actual matter that way. They are able to manipulate, and they are able to control the elements in a lot of ways. They have basically mastered nature, the secrets of the elements in nature, and also the components that make up matter. So that's their type of magic, which is really just science that we don't understand yet. So that's where they are. So you have to kind of develop a quantum psyche, start to embrace a higher set of ideals and virtues within yourself, and a higher consciousness and awareness of yourself and others. And you will align to them. And I really do believe that when more people do that, then the aliens will come out of the closet and come out of their hiding. And that's when we will meet them more and more. The next question, it was a really good question, and I hope that I explained it as best as I could. The next question I have is by J Lord. Where exactly do Elven Starseeds come from? And also, where exactly are they from on Earth? Okay, so you have like a two-part question here. Thank you again for your support with your super chat questions. Okay, so I wanted to break this down. So I hold the original transcripts from the Billy Meyer contact reports, and this is all about the Pleiadians. So the reason why there's a collective idea that the Pleiadians are elfin or elven type of beings is because people are starting to understand that nature, a nature-centered consciousness, is really an advanced consciousness. So actually, all advanced beings in the universe are actually close to nature, understand the laws of nature. And in fact, the Pleiadians say this: creational laws are observed always in nature, if man learns to pay attention enough to see them in nature. The human who adheres to creation's laws is the most blessed and most fearless being. His will is insurmountable, his dedication immeasurable and endless, and his wisdom and love are constant and perfect, not capricious and full of doubts, like it is the case with those who are dependent on religions or generally those who are led astray in some other way. His mind resembles the wide, endless sea and does not let itself come out of its rest. He does not tremble with fear. Therefore, the human may unfold his spiritual mind that is not any more reached by any degenerated negative force. The mind which gives no shelter to negatively degenerated thoughts and supersedes all positively degenerated thoughts and actions. Only a balanced mind that is rooted in what is creative and in nature, in creative service, in creative wisdom, its knowledge, its love and joy that are more real than all material walls around and more real than the human environment is valuable and serving the spirit's development. So the Pleiadians have kind of deemed themselves in our collective, this is the collective story that's taking place, they have seen humanity evolve and start to war with each other, and this is all part of the process. You always have higher beings that have learned from their past come to help others. It's like the cycle of teachers and students here on Earth. So it's the same thing. It's really the only way that we get a catalyst for change in human history is by having some type of outside consciousness come in. Einstein said that we cannot change our present state of consciousness from the same state of consciousness we're in. So what that means is that there always has to be some type of ascended master. There always has to be some type of angelic spirit. There always has to be some type of revelation. And there always has to be some type of alien visitor or messenger coming to planet Earth. That is the catalyst. That's the outside consciousness. And sometimes it's within humanity too, that changes over the paradigm, the old paradigm into the new by inspiring new thoughts from a higher state of consciousness that the average masses are at. So that's why aliens are part of the collective. They are the helpers through this process. They are part of our higher selves, helping us to remember ourselves. Now, the reason why they are considered to be elven-like is because of the way that they appear. They seem to be tall, elegant whenever people channel them. So in our mind, we have this image of elves being that way. And we have them being presented in art and folklore and fairy tales that way. We also have them kind of seen in a way where they are very balanced, objectively so. So they remind us of the Elves of Tolkien. We have people that create books like this, where it's about elves that they channel. I read this on my channel, and it's a really great book. It's called World Within Our Own, and there's a video that I basically read a lot of really important messages from it. And she talks about how they're elves from Pleiades, and they basically came to Earth to help many of the different tribes that were here. A lot of the Native Americans know them as the Star People. So there's a lot in the collective that shows that they are connected to the elves. I've been reading more and more that they might even be what we consider the Tua Dadanan, which are the beings that were said to come to Ireland to teach the Irish magic or higher technology. They themselves were not Irish, but they came to Ireland and they taught the Celtics things. And they eventually got pushed down below the surface because there was a war. Basically, the humans who were here, they were afraid of them, these visitors that came from outer space or out of nowhere. And now we have the idea in the collective that the Pleiadians are underneath our Earth and they are part of the inner Earth. So there's that idea that there is that connection. In JRR Tolkien stories, the elves are like one level in consciousness above humans in terms of they're older, they're wiser, they have been through war. So what are the Pleiadians doing? They're the ones most in touch with humanity in terms of kind of the historical evidence of them in the world that have tried to teach humans something, that have tried to help them. So they represent the older, wiser version of humanity because they themselves are humanoids. But the question arises that if we become so connected to nature and we start to observe the universal laws in nature and understand how we are nature itself, and then we are able to start to use nature to its fullest advantage and potential to create a galactic world together, well, then we become the elves that we envision. Basically, humans have that potential, and they themselves are the elves, and that's kind of what my channel is about. It's not about dividing humanity from elves and humans. It's about helping humans arise to their elven nature. And I really do believe that there's a really deep connection there, and many others as well. There's another book you can read. It's called How the Pleiadians Taught Me to Live, Love, and Laugh Again, The Elves from Canada by Joel Blanchard. It's a Kindle book on Amazon. I also have a review on it on my channel. If you go to my Elven library, you'll see all my books. And that's my playlist on here. And so, yeah, there's a lot of interesting correlations and connections. So I hope that answered your question. It was a really good one, and I wanted to put that on here. And now we could just free chat. And of course, you can ask me more questions about that if you want. So hello, everybody. The few, the proud, the Elven, Narin. Yeah, I'm so happy that, I have my Elven folk here, those who have kind of awakened into their Elven nature, and also new friends too. I invited all my new Facebook friends. I'm hoping that I have a lot more people that are new too, and maybe it'll help awaken something Elven within them as well. And just to be sure, I have a video called What is a High Elf? High Elf to me is not necessarily about status or pride or arrogance. In fact, I take examples from Tolkien's elves to show that it's not that, at least when they learn and they are in the third age and you see the wiser beings that they become. You are not wise when you are arrogant. You are not wise when you are prideful, because you're not willing to learn more. And the whole idea of wisdom is expanding your knowledge. It's like you have this infinite reservoir of information that you can contain. So the wiser a person is, the more open-minded they really are to actually absorb information, to expand their consciousness and their perceptions as well. That's really what makes the elves really wise, that I have discovered within JRR Tolkien's writings. And he has very specific lessons within his older stories in the Silmarillion that shows that the elves at one point weren't the wisest. In fact, some of them followed some of the wrong people and characters in his stories. And they committed a really great tragedy called the kinslaying. And that was the only kinslaying that was really ever done. Elves do not kill each other. That's the other thing. That's what makes them a little bit above humans. Elves do not kill each other normally, except for that one time. And Tolkien wanted to show that difference. So we have to ask ourselves the question, how do humans rise to the level of where the Elven consciousness is? Well, I have over 500 videos that try to help explore that with you. And I do believe, I have faith in humanity that we are supposed to rise to that level. And it doesn't matter if you're a starseed from the Pleiades or not. I think that we're having a collective story of reawakening back to that position. Maybe there was a falling in those civilizations in the Pleiades. Maybe there was something that happened that caused many starseeds to forget themselves. And to me, every human is basically infinite consciousness, so they have lived in other planets together. So maybe we're having a collective story once again of different beings from different areas coming together. I call Earth the convergence point, really, because Earth is very, very old, and Atlantis and Lemuria were one of the very first civilizations. And then the Pleiades star system is actually younger than Earth. So is Sirius. It's younger than Earth. So perhaps we actually all basically originated here, went off to other places, then came back and are working out our karmic, our karmic ties and dynamics to each other so that we can each evolve. We basically are helping each other evolve. I really do believe that. So Siren of the Void, I want to share, this year has shown me the importance of being grounded, of working on the root chakra. In fact, I got a dream the past night about the sacral chakra. That's good. The sacral chakra is for your creativity. It's like opening up to receiving, so that's your intimate center too, and really getting inspiration from the universe to become that tool for creativity and to manifest things. So that's really wonderful, Siren of the Void. I know you said you had issues with that before. So good. Let's see what other, we have any new people here? Uncle Badger, I don't know if I saw you before. Oh, you said, I was wondering about My Gavanen as a greeting. Yes, if you watch the movies, it's there. And it's also in the very first book of the Fellowship of the Rings. It's a greeting that the elves do to each other. And it means well met. Melissa, hi, greetings. Are you aware of the connection between the Elven bloodline and the kingship bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene that passed down through the Scottish kings? No, I have not done my research in that direction necessarily. Are you talking about like the Merovingians, sort of? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what I base Elven Consciousness on is really just connection to nature. This is a really wonderful book too. Look at Tolkien. I love him. In his garden, he really loved the environment. He really loved the earth. He himself, I think, had a very elfin type of spirit. And I believe that he comes from that kind of bloodline. I have a video on how to tell if you're from, one of the Fae bloodlines, because I do believe that when fairies were here, they could have been visitors from outer space. They can also be elementals that have always been alongside us. I do believe that they mingled. I know for a fact that I have had experience learning that that's part of my ancestry. So they mingled with humans. There's so much weird tales and stories of them, actually having children with humans, or the changeling babies, taking a human baby and changing them. I mean, there's these types of stories that are clues to our past about fairies and elves. And you can very much connect it to the idea of extraterrestrials when you think about, where maybe some of them came from. And also the universe is very vast. So of course there's going to be beings from many different places that symbolize what we think is the archetype of elf. Now, J Lord, you asked me specifically about where. So I have heard in the collective, and intuitively I feel that Andromeda, our sister galaxy, has many elves and fairies there. Also many other different beings. I mean, how big is Andromeda galaxy? But also around the Pleiades. Now the Pleiades, I want you to know, is that it's too young of a system for life to be living around it on our dimension. But the Pleiadians in the Billy Meyer contact report say that they are in another higher dimension of space living around the Pleiades. So a lot of scientists and people who are skeptical of aliens, they say, well, life can't really form on these planets by the stars. But actually, they're in other dimensions, and physicists are finally starting to understand how that works, that there's other dimensions to space. And so I definitely know that around the Pleiades, I mean, that's a huge star system itself. There are many different life forms. And yes, many of them could be elven-like creatures or beings, humanoids that we would consider elves. We also have Sirius as one of the systems that many people feel there are blue-skinned elves. That's the one intuitively I have tapped into. And they are more like aquatic elven beings, maybe even like fey mermaid types. Also the type of cat feline type of beings like the Avatar movie. I think that was a very possible life form around Sirius. And I even feel a very deep connection to Sirius, like I had some lifetimes there, as well as the Pleiades too. And so Lyra, that whole constellation, Vega, very, very old. And so a lot of the elven beings could have originated from there too. So those are kind of the places that I have looked into, and I feel that there's a connection there. Also, possibly around the Orion belt too. Some people have said there could be some fairies there too. So yeah, the universe is a very big place for fairies, because fae is really just a term for any type of creature or humanoid that is an elemental, meaning that they represent the elements in some way. They can either represent all of the elements, or they can take an aspect of them and become an archetype for rain, or an archetype for roses. And then that's where you get like the rose fairy, or you get the rain nymphs in the little lagoons, so there starts to be this kind of categories within these larger umbrella terms of elves and fairies. But yeah, I believe that they are all over the universe in many different forms. Thinking Michu Kachu, yeah, he's a physicist, and he is really great at kind of envisioning advanced civilizations. And sadly, I don't know if this number changed, but he said that human civilization is at like a 1. It's not even at a hypergalactic level. So we have to kind of put our minds together. We really want to, if the majority of us really want to raise to this higher consciousness level where we can start making our world a place that could basically harness the energy of these higher beings, we have to start thinking about how would they live and be inspired by that, because it will help us remember something about ourselves too. I really do believe that we have been through this before, and many of us are kind of having deja vu, and we're going through this timeline where we're choosing different pathways than what we might have chosen before together. And I really do think that it's happening again. We are in the crossroads right now. Whether we are going to take care of our planet, we're going to focus on greener technology and energy to really live in coexistence with nature. Or like the movie I just watched today, this French film called April and the Extraordinary World. Very sad. It's about the last tree on Earth. And what happened was scientists were actually stolen by reptilian aliens. Well, they're actually like mutated lizards on Earth. And then it's a really interesting movie. Very well done. It's an animation and I really enjoyed it. But the important part of it to me was that they were showing that there was the last tree on Earth. And the Earth was becoming an industrial world. And basically the air quality was suffering greatly. So we have to start thinking about that. We really do. And I really think that we're in that crossroad right now. How would we perceive those higher beings? That's a good question, Siren of the Void. The way I have perceived them is through meditation practices. I do have the C5 video about, so Stephen Greer is trying to get people to initiate contact. And so C5 helps you do that. C5 is this program that he started. It's an app that you can buy on your phone. And I kind of read the app a little bit, so it gives you a preview. I don't do it, but I go through what you're supposed to do. But there's meditation involved. There's heart center connection involved, because you have to also come to them with love. That's really important, because they are also at a place of universal love, unity within their civilizations. So they really want to connect to others that are in that same type of mind frame too. So C5 contact is, I think that's a good way to start. I know you are married, but do you feel like you have a soulmate from a different reality? Mary Preston. That's a good question. I do think, so my experience with my husband is that I do believe that he is my twin flame. I believe that we have met before and we are working out karmic things here too. The reason why I think he's my twin flame is because he's very much my opposite, and he only came into my life when I was really in a really solid state and really discovered love within, awakened to internal power, not external power. So he kind of mirrored back all that I worked on and the healing that I'd done. And what I notice is that when I'm off balance, when I'm going through hard times, he is too. And so I do feel that he is my twin flame. I do think that we had experiences. I even told him that in the afterlife, I wanted to meet him on this bridge somewhere, and he agreed. So we're connected in a lot of ways. For me personally, Mary, no, I don't. I think that he is the person that I'm supposed to travel the galaxy with, basically. But there really is no way for me to truly know. Maybe I'm just focused so much on this life because this is my marriage, and I'm trying to make sure that I have a peaceful, a happy experience within it. I'm very much a realist in that way. I try to not focus on things that I can't do really in this life, because I already am filled with so much information and ideas that sometimes I can overwhelm myself. So I don't try to add things to my plate. But if you feel that there's somebody else out there, the way that you call that twin flame into your life is balancing yourself, being happy with yourself, becoming the person that you always wanted to be. And you will attract that person to you. They're working on themselves too, I do believe. And then when you've worked on yourself, they've kind of finished working on themselves, and then they kind of come into your life. I have a video on that too. Brielle, that's going to be hard for humanity as a whole to do that. Brielle, I'm not sure, as far as like raising consciousness together, I'm not sure it is. I have really kind of awakened into this place where we are really connected. There's a great TED Talks video about how you can look at music and mathematics and you can understand how everything is connected and energy is all connected. So when a few of us raise our vibrations and our consciousness, in some way it's contagious. In some way it is something that people can tap into themselves. And that's kind of what the internet is doing. We are sharing messages of higher consciousness. We are helping each other remember and awaken. So I don't think that it's going to be hard for humanity because we have the internet. If we didn't have the internet, I think that it would, because we would be separated. So in some way, I think that all advanced beings have some form of telepathy or some type of psychic connection. And they don't necessarily have to have the internet, but they do have to be able to see each other's thoughts, to hear each other's thoughts. Just like in the movie Avatar, really wonderful example of that. They connect their tails to each other and they have their nerve endings that connect. Well, in some ways, we are doing that with our own brain synapses by using the internet, expressing ourselves and our higher understandings and awakenings to each other. So I'm not so sure it's going to be hard. I think that it's going to be a subtle movement. I think that the experience will be different for everyone, because if you yourself are not awakened into higher consciousness and you're still in tribalism, domination, control, competitive human nature, representing the reptilian brain, which is the three-part mind: reptilian brain, mammalian brain, and neocortex. The reptilian brain is about fight or flight. So if humans are in the fight or flight, well, they're not really engaging the emotions. They're not really engaging the higher mind of the neocortex, which really is the place where we start to appreciate art and beauty and music and JRR Tolkien stories, fantasy, imagination, all things that really awaken something within ourselves and make, I think, the human species or the humanoid species philosophers, those that are able to think and to come to reason, to come to expressing themselves beautifully and evolving themselves spiritually. So I'm not so sure, Brielle. I really do think, I'm positive, I'm optimistic that I think that we really can actually, I do see it in flashes of vision of the future, that we will live on a planet where everybody is pretty wise and in a place of higher consciousness. We will get there. I do see it. And if I'm not the only one, then we're creating it, because we're helping to put forward those intentions and those visions out there. Solavi. So to Melissa, my understanding, the Cathars in the mountains between Spain and France is where Mary Magdalene went. I was not aware of the Elven Connection. Yeah, I mean, Elven Connection to me is about nature, understanding and knowing everything, the ins and outs of nature and its laws. So can we look at the Merovingian bloodline or the Magdalene bloodline and see that they're connected to nature too? I'm trying to think of Jesus's teachings. He didn't have much about nature, which is really astonishing to me. He had some really wonderful insights about humans, but there wasn't much about nature. That's why this book, to me, to be honest, is like the second Bible, basically, because it has spiritual messages in it that are for your spiritual development and helping you to connect back to creational source. But at the same time, you also kind of get a glimpse of how they talk about how nature is really our way to understanding how the universe works. and how everything works, really. Cycles and seasons of nature, the way that everything goes back into nature, the cycle of animals that eat each other, or, that sustain each other. There are laws at work here in nature. And so the Pleiadians said that when man becomes aware of those natural laws, they will awaken their consciousness to be able to govern themselves better, basically. So, I mean, I would have to draw connection and see. Naren, I had a dream. I was with someone cuddling and then I woke up. So I believe there's another soulmate in the soul plane. That's what a lot of people do say. Here's my idea on this. I want everybody to be happy and to feel that they meet their true partner here on Earth. So I don't like to present the idea that, oh, you need to wait the next lifetime for true love. I believe that it comes from within. And we have a planet of 7 billion people, and we have the internet. And I'm a very big fan of internet dating for this reason. I believe connecting to somebody through mind and not necessarily through looks or appearances all the time, like that you might do, if you go out to a bar or to a club. Although I met my husband at a club dancing, I do feel that sometimes that mind connection is really the most important piece. So I say express yourselves, be who you are, keep being, the light that you are on Earth, and your light will attract another that is resonating with you, that is vibrating on your same level of the higher vibrations. When we vibrate at a low level of self-worth, self-esteem, guilt, shame, self-doubt, self-hate, any of those negative, lower vibrations, we tend to attract partners that emphasize that in us. I remember when I was really insecure in my early 20s, I actually attracted narcissists. They loved me because I was an empath that didn't really feel good about myself. I didn't really understand myself, my power. So surely I met others that would like to take advantage of that power, or like to make me feel like I don't have power, because it just emphasizes what you already feel. It's almost like we are trying to constantly convince ourselves with our reality that our reality is true. So if our mind thinks of something so much so, then our outside reality must reflect what our mind thinks. Otherwise, we have a dissonance, and then that's just craziness. I mean, that's just where you feel like you're just out of touch of reality. But I don't believe that that's how the mind works. I believe that it really is about what you believe inside. And I have had experience about that. So just rise into your own power, enjoy life, be okay being alone. I was alone for many years before I met my husband. After I met my other boyfriends that I did not vibe with any longer, I started to spiritually heal. Oh, I got so into yoga and feeling good about myself again, really studying Buddhism. I went to a Buddhist temple for the very first time. I no longer go to a Buddhist temple anymore, but I went to a Buddhist temple for my very first time. And I just changed my mindset. And then when I was really ready, when it was time, that right person saw me as a free spirit. In some way, I broke the bonds of my own chain in my mind. And then my husband actually said that he saw me as a very free spirit. That's actually what really attracted him to me. And I love that. I love that. I wanted him to see me free. I don't know. That's my whole thing. I really want to be known as a free spirit, or to be seen and recognized as that. Because I myself are trying to free humans, liberate them, and help them break the bonds of their own chains in their mind. So of course I want to be seen as free by the person that, I want to spend time with. So I hope that that maybe inspires people and maybe just gets them to think about something else beside than waiting around till next lifetime. Now, it is completely, absolutely your choice. If you would rather be on your own for this life and you enjoy being alone, I absolutely respect that. And I love that, because I myself I was alone for a long time and I really enjoyed it. You know, the eat, pray, love thing, that really works. Being alone for a long time and just getting to know yourself and enjoy life from that perspective. And then you meet somebody who sees you really happy. So if you are truly happy without partnership, then enjoy life and be happy. But if you really do want a partnership, then never lose hope and always believe that you are deserving of love. You are worthy of love. Love, to me and to the Pleiadians, is the law of the universe. They say this is an exact quote from, I think, March 26, 1975. I have it memorized. With love and wisdom, the human being becomes master over all creation, just with love and wisdom. So become as wise as the elves and become as loving as you can, and you will manifest anything that you want. You will create anything that you desire, because you're coming from pure source of awareness, of consciousness, and that has power to create. We are existence itself, and we are each creators, and we are tapping into our creational power. I really believe that. Yingri, hi, I haven't seen you before. How do you balance between relationship and spiritual growth? And if you can share if your husband was spiritually awoken or into such learnings too. Well, my husband and I have different paths in terms of spirituality. He often tells me that, he's not there yet. He doesn't want to talk about certain things, and I leave him alone with that. It's very difficult sometimes to balance relationship and spirituality, but for me, they are one and the same. So in terms of what I have done is I really just keep reminding myself of my own values and ideals. So because I believe in freedom so much, as the Pleiadians say, it's about the liberation of spirit. Because I believe so much in liberation, I will never force anything on others. I will never push. So that's really my motto, basically, in relationships. You just do you, be who you can be, express yourself the way you can, show what you can, and allow somebody to go on their own journey. And what I notice is that when I don't push, when I don't force, he comes around and has some kind of spiritual realization and awakening, and it's really wonderful to see and to hear. So I believe that it's really about allowing people to be freely themselves and just being there for them and patient for them, and keeping center within yourself to know that you have all the time in the universe, because you awaken to your infinite self, your infinite consciousness. So I hope that helps. Yes, Naren, exactly. They are there that way. So twin flames are there that way because we create our universe, and they will appear when we are ready. Yes. And there's something really magical about that idea, because it's not like you created a robot. They are not an exact replica of your thoughts. There's surprises. There is an adventure there. There are things that you have never even thought of before. There's an organic creativity that is involved in the manifestation of your twin flame. They're not exactly a mirror of exactly you, but they mirror things about you, and you mirror things about them. And it is existence itself showing you how to evolve. reminding you from your higher self how to evolve through this relationship dynamic. What I find is that when you're not, because this is exactly what happened in my life. When I was in other relationships, I was not really spiritually developing, or I didn't have that. I believe we're always spiritually developing. Let's just get that out of the way. But I was not conscious of spiritually developing. I would read, like I remember in high school, I loved to go to Barnes and Noble and sit there and read horoscope, zodiac books. I was really into the occult. I loved reading about magic and the occult. And, I was always into elves and fairies, so I always had that aspect of myself. But when I started to become actually conscious and aware of spiritual development, meaning looking at all these, I guess, spiritual pathways into enlightenment, and reminding and getting really wonderful reminders from, the Rig Veda, from Hinduism, looking into Sufism of Islam, looking into the Kabbalah from the mystical parts of Judaism, looking into the Gnostics of Christianity. When I opened myself to learning about spiritual development in that way, and really understanding how consciousness works on kind of a quantum level, and really getting involved in learning about quantum mechanics and the quantum psychology and all that, that's really when I started to have more real relationships, because I was being more, I guess, in tune with myself. I was no longer part of just the material world. I was really conscious and aware of my spiritual being. And so my relationships started to get deeper in that way. A lot of people may have very superficial relationships because they themselves are just at that superficial level. And so when you start to employ spiritual development, you meet others that are also looking for spiritual development, or you meet others that are not, and you can discern better of who to date and who to, spend time with. So as humans evolve, they become more conscious and aware. They get better at being able to go through relationships with each other and, really kind of understand one another more. Let's see, get somebody else here, maybe. Iru Lastiel. Yes, true happiness begins with being happy with yourself. I absolutely agree. Yes, it really does. It really does. Because if you're not happy with yourself, you really are going to meet somebody else that is not happy with themselves. And that causes a real problem sometimes, because, you basically are having, and what was that word again? That was such a good word. The anti-thematic relationship, where you're not, let me look it up again. Does anybody remember that word that I was talking about before? Where you're not really your true self with each other, and you hide your actual feelings. So you can be in love with each other. You could really want love, but because you don't feel love within for yourself, and that other person doesn't feel love for themselves on a really deep, spiritual level of acceptance, then you kind of treat each other poorly. There's like, or you don't express yourself fully, because there's a fear there of vulnerability. I think it's antithesis relationship? Ugh. I'm going to find this. I was talking about it in another video, and it could be the anti-thematic. I'm not sure. That's really kind of, I don't know. My sickness is making my memory a little off here. Aha. Antitheatrical. The antitheatrical relationship. Watch out for this dynamic. This is many relationships out there, because I realized this is how people refer to each other. And it's not just love romance relationships. It's also normal friendships too. It means hateful or lonesome, where it is about you're acting hateful to each other sometimes, but you're really not, you're not being honest with how you feel. And so there's that happens. What it means is that you yourself want love, you want understanding, you want openness, you want communication, but you yourself don't have the self-confidence or this feeling of self-worth that you deserve those things. So you don't express them, that you need those things. And so both partners end up treating each other really unkindly because they're not being honest with what they need. And they're only coming from the ego that has been hurt. So and you have to search for it within yourself to be able to recognize it in others as well. So a higher self relationship is really where you can be truly happy. The lower self relationships are full of drama, splintered with, I guess, glimmers of joy and fun. But definitely I've seen a lot of differences in between relationships that I had before when I was unaware of myself and versus the ones where I became awakened and aware of myself more and fully conscious of who I am and what I do all the time. I meet those types of people. Oh, free bear. Nice to meet you. Thank you for all the wisdom you share. Oh, you are so welcome. I mean, that's all a soul can do. There is a lot in mysticism, and because I am a mystic, I practice that type of spiritual pathway to divine union with all things. There is an idea in mysticism that I have come to truly believe, and I have seen it. And now it's not even, it's just like involuntary in me. The idea that the highest type of joy or happiness is servitude to others. So when you get to a place where you feel really happy inside, where you feel that you have awakened spiritually enough to understand yourself and how emotions work and spiritual, consciousness works and things like that, you get to a place where all you want to do is share. And I have this quote that I shared to my Facebook page because it's so true, and I can share it right with you right now. This is what exactly that means. And Beethoven said this. This comes from Ludwig van Beethoven. There is no loftier mission than to approach the divinity nearer than other men and to disseminate the divine rays among mankind. Didn't think he was so spiritual, but he is, obviously, because you kind of have to be a spiritual person to create music like that. And he is in touch with his spirit. He understands, and I think that there might be some esoteric kind of wisdom within him too. Like he probably learned about what was happening in terms of, I know Beethoven, what year was he? Was he during the Enlightenment? Because that sounds a lot like the Enlightenment era. He was 1770. He was baptized 1770. So he's born. Yeah, he was before. He was right around that era of Enlightenment era in the late 1700s. So actually, that makes a lot of sense there. But yes, that's exactly what I do believe, is that you get to a point where you cannot help but disseminate, spread messages out that you have learned. And that's kind of the goal of an old soul, I think, to get to that place. Certainly the Bodhisattva path of like the Buddha and certain ascended masters that try to come back, or do come back, and they help humanity in some way. So yeah, I feel like there's ultimate joy in that path. So it's a pleasure for me. It's really something that just comes natural now, because I just want you all to be happy. Oh, I love that, Mary Preston. Be wise like an elf, but love like a fairy. That's nice. You know, Tolkien's elves were really good at love, I think, in general. You know, Tolkien himself, I think that he was a man that really is a good example of love and loyalty, because he married his wife Edith, and she was his Arwen. She was like inspiration to him. Actually, she was his Luthien. And they remained married for a very long time, and still to today, you can go to the gravesite and there's a grave that says, you know, to my Luthien. So there is a really beautiful story there, and he put that with his elves to represent that love actually doesn't have to be superficial. A wiser being loves more deeply. A wiser being is not into superficial relationships any longer. And that's basically what we realize with the Pleiadians and other types of extraterrestrials. And, you know, those of us that feel we're starseeds, we are looking for that type of love here on Earth. And it can be very painful, because sometimes it's hard to find that type of love. But what I have found is that you make that love. You know, you create that love. You just have to awaken to your power to do so once again. It's really just starts with the inside of you, and then you manifest it. Uncle Badger, I started reading a book called Quantum Psychology by Robert Anton Wilson, who recently. It's fascinating. Yeah, I came into that term quite recently, but that's pretty much what I've been doing. Is like, I'm trying to take the quantum world and trying to merge it with the psychology of what we know about the emotions, and understand how vibrations and frequencies affect our emotions and work on our mind in that way. I have this video that's about lower and higher beings. And what I have discovered through, you know, looking into science and understanding about the quantum field is that the lower beings are in the infrared rays of consciousness. They are below human sight. So they would be what we consider like the invisible demons or jinns. And then they basically vibrate at below human consciousness, if you can even imagine. Take the most evil human that you can think of on Earth, and then you can understand what, you know, those types of beings may think. But then you have on the other spectrum is the ultraviolet rays, that is above purple or violet in this invisible spectrum of light, and they represent a very high vibration being, the light beings that are so good. They live completely in unconditional love. They love everyone. They are very wise. They, you know, they're everything that you imagine. They're very benevolent and kind. So there's a spectrum of light that actually represents consciousness. And so quantum psychology works in that way, understanding consciousness by looking at the energetic world. Really fascinating idea, brought on by the Manhattan Project. Actually, they started to develop a chart for human emotions based on vibrations and frequencies that you might carry. Everything is all connected, and we are really just energy playing out. So, yeah. Yeah, I will check out that book too. That's a really good one, Uncle Badger. Thank you. Laura, I like your video on the Dark Elves. Well, thank you. I'm glad you do. I had a past as a dark fae too. So I was really, you know, connected into that kind of lifetime that I had that going on. I'm not sure if that's connected to Pleiades. I'm not going to say that. I'm not sure if that at all. In fact, the Billy Meyer contact report suggests that that would not be true. But I do think that that was definitely one of the past lives that I had where I did not like humans. And I experienced them in a way of where, you know, I didn't understand them. And yeah, it's a different story now. Can't stop connecting to them in this lifetime. Mary Preston, have you thought of doing a blog where the hubby is in it for a little while, or can you show your personal life in a way that makes you comfortable? Oh, he will not. Yeah, I asked him. I was like, it would be really great to have you on a video, because he's a really smart man, and I thought that would be really great, but he's just not there, not interested, which is okay. I wish I could. Maybe someday. Maybe when we're old, we're like an old couple. Cat Cruise. Hi, unfortunately, I'm at work and unable to listen, but I wanted to stop by for a moment and give my love and support to your amazing channel that has helped me through so much. Oh, namaste, Cat. I'm so happy that it's helped you. That's really great. Yeah, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to do a little bit of creation myself and, you know, play with imagination and bring out the elven spirit in people, but at the same time, I really wanted them to heal. So I'm happy that it gives you some healing. H7 Apollo, I've never understood consciousness separate from biology, but your notion of light beings makes me think. Yes, watch that video. It's really, really interesting. Consciousness is not separate from biology. What it means is that, so we ourselves are not truly solid, but we perceive ourselves in this way. That matter, we know in science, things are either a solid, a gas, a liquid, a gaseous state, plasma, and they appear in that form. Why? Because molecules are bouncing off of each other at different rates. So in terms of the light spectrum, frequencies are too high to see things. Like gas, you can't see the gaseous state things. You could see a little bit of maybe steam or smoke, but it's not, it's opaque, right? Or it's transparent. You can't see it. So that's exactly what's going on sometimes with lower beings and higher beings. So it's an interesting idea about the light spectrum and why you can't see things that are in the infrared area, and then also you can't see the ultraviolet, but you can feel them, you can sense them if you are sensitive to energies, and I think that they do have some effect on us, on our emotions. And actually that's what the Manhattan Project was about. They were interested in nuclear energy and, you know, atomic energy and things like that, but they started to get into, I think his name was Dawson. He started getting into, well, how does energy affect the human body in terms of emotions? So it is all connected in that way. So you can't really take consciousness out of biology, but yeah, you can learn more about that. I have that video on here. It's called The Difference Between Light Beings and Dark Beings in terms of energy. Uncle Badger, I like the idea of consciousness being a type of light. To the Gnostics, that's what it is. Light does not mean unicorns, puppies, rainbows. You know, sometimes there's this idea that light and love means softness or happiness, but it can, because here's the thing, it's about awareness. Nietzsche said that light is basically is awareness. It's what was that quote that I had? It was a really interesting one. Nietzsche on love. I think it's I want to say that it is awareness. That's what he said. Okay. Love is not consolation, it is light. So he puts it all together that if you become a loving being, then you are in full awareness of yourself, and light equals awareness. So really, love and light is redundant to Nietzsche, but we can separate the idea in terms of allowing us to show different demonstrations of love and expressions of love, but also light is awareness, and awareness of ourselves and others consciously. So yeah, light always to me is awareness and enlightenment, illumination. It's not the fluffy stuff that people think. That's not how I see it. Let's see. Shadowlander. Hello, my elven friend. I'm a Syrian mermaid. Well met. I'm glad that you stopped by. Syrian mermaids. Yeah, such a really wonderful type of world when I astral traveled there. In terms of their beings. I have a video on them if you ever want to take a look. It's in the Pleiadian University of Wisdom. Those are just some things that I kind of tapped into when I astral traveled to different places. And astral traveling to me is just really meditation, and I'm a spirit writer. So I have this kind of, when sometimes I get downloads instantly and then I'll just start writing. Like I just need to write. I sometimes drive my husband crazy because I have to put everything down and go to it because I have so much energy in me. I have to somehow get it out of me. Otherwise I'm just like an anxious ball of energy. It's like vibrating in me. It's really high vibrational messages about consciousness and everything. And I mean, in some way, yes, it's coming from me, but I do believe that it does come from a higher dimensional source. And if I can tap into that, it somehow helps others, as the collective. So yeah, I'm a spirit writer. So you can watch all those videos if you want. And I do talk about Sirius. Mary Preston, do you know what planet or place has a pink and purple sky? I see that so often. Pink and purple sky. That is beautiful. Well, sometimes we have that with our own sky too. Like our I see it sometimes at dusk. It's really beautiful. But I'm not sure. I mean, the universe is so vast. It's so vast, but I could definitely see that the Pleiades, when I travel there, it's this really beautiful place. I mean, because they have been able to understand the secrets of nature so well and harness all of the potential of nature, their planets are completely in coexistence with nature. I wouldn't necessarily say they're like the Avatar planets where it's all natural. I do think that there are beings that do live that way. I believe that the Pleiadians are more technology mixed with nature. And in fact, Samyase talks about the ships in here, that they're organic, and inorganic connected together. So what's organic, what's inorganic? Inorganic might be what we consider to be computer technology, wires, electricity, that kind of thing. But then they're organic. It means that the ship itself, kind of like the Abyss movie, they don't get into it in the movie, but in the book they do. And I have videos on here. I wanted to put them on here. I read from those experts of the aliens that they have technology underneath the water that is inorganic and organic. It looks like Like their buildings look like ribs. They look like organs and body parts that, we might be able to, I guess, recognize. But at the same time, they're completely full of circuits and synapses and electrodes and all that. The best way I can describe, and this is why I love learning about mushrooms in this way, the Fantastic Fungi movie is brilliant, wonderful. It talks about how the fungi basically are like the computer net. They are the organic network that we use as a computer. They are completely organic, but they have these mycelium that is basically extending their tendrils to each other, and they connect that way. So fungi across the forest are basically connecting underground, just like we connect on the internet. They are the organic version of the internet. So I believe that that's what technology looks like in the Pleiades. If it is organic and inorganic, it must be fungi based, or where it's a mix between, a plant and light. It's like both of them. And I think that arcology and archaeologists, like they're they're architects that are starting to combine the environment with their architecture and laws of nature, or just the way that like a leaf looks. They're starting to combine it with designing buildings. That's exactly what the Pleiades looks like to me. So in terms of the sky, I don't know. I would say that blue stars that glow blue would definitely give off some type of different light. But it all depends. I mean, it's really about these wonderful environments that you kind of envision. So I hope that kind of answers some questions. I know I went off in another direction there. Yes, welcome. How do I not be fearful of a dark new world order agenda? Oh, good question. Okay, all right. Now we're getting to some deep stuff. Okay, let me tell you about me. Okay, so I kind of awoken in a negative way. And what I mean by this is that I awoken through fear in terms of when I remembered aliens. Okay. So as a child, I had some experiences with aliens, but then in my 20s, I started to kind of like get really strange feelings of fear about them in terms of like reptilians, things of that nature. I watched this like video talking about the wave and how as the humans enter into a new dimension, they meet up with the reptilians who are waiting for them in that dimension. Okay, so this was about 15 years ago, maybe, I think. So I went down that rabbit hole. And why I call it a rabbit hole is this. There are two different things that are playing out. We have a story that we are getting to watch and experience. But on another level, and especially what you learn when you start studying higher spirituality, ideas of mysticism, Gnosticism, quantum psychology, quantum physics, quantum mechanics. On that level of understanding, you can understand that everything is coming from the mind. So your thoughts and what you desire and your intentions are playing out in some way, that they kind of manifest the reality before you, and then that's how you experience them. Now, we do have a collective story that's playing out because we are one, but we also have individual experiences too. So my awakening started out very negatively in the way that I kind of got a little scared. I started going down the rabbit hole, scaring myself, learning as much as I could about negative aliens, Nibiru, reptilians, all of that. And I started to kind of, feel a sense of, fear, hopelessness, just kind of anxiety. So what I started to do over time was learn more and more about it. And I kind of got into more, I guess really the only thing I did was get into meditation and spiritual awakening in that way. When I did that, I tapped into the higher mind that is above this earth story that's playing out, or the galactic one that's playing out, and I got into the higher mind. And that's exactly what I read in the very beginning, is that when the human being taps into the higher mind, the consciousness, creational intelligence, as the Pleiadians call it, they are fearless. And you could watch it again if you just came in. I said it in the very beginning. They are fearless. They know that nothing can touch them and that they are one with creation itself. So that's how I got rid of my fear. I awoke into that place of the higher mind. So I hope that that helps you. What I really awoke into is a divine sense of love through the crown chakra opening, where I see my oneness in everything. So because I recognize the light within myself and also the dark within myself, I recognize the light and the dark within others. So I don't see my fellow man or fellow beings here on earth in a way that I consider would be evil. I see them as unconscious yet of their inner light. They are not yet conscious of their goodness that they come from, or at least the internal place of power that they come from, where they don't have to seek for external power. So my no fear of the world, the New World Order, comes from that place. Because I know that in essence, I am creating that reality to either fear or either to love. And what I have started to look at is that we are one and we are trying to reconnect to each other. So the New World Order is something that I don't fear when I start to understand that everything is one. And I'm not afraid of others in that way. I believe that there is room for dialogue. We need to, as a humanity, come together and talk about, well, what would the New World Order be in terms of not from a fearful place, but we do need change. So how can we transition into this galactic world without force, without a tyrant, without, enslaving people, making a dystopian type of future? I mean, I don't see that we can go into that future because of so many people are awakening. And when so many people are awakening and becoming wiser beings, they're not going to be easily controlled. I do not think that a New World Order could happen at the state of consciousness that so many people are at. I really don't think that it would be wise for anybody to even try to dominate mankind at the state of consciousness that many people are awakening to. So, I mean, that's my experience. And I'm starting to kind of go with the flow of things. In Taoism, in Buddhism, in Alan Watts-ism, the Alan Watts, he was a philosopher, he was a writer, he was really a really big help to me kind of with this understanding, that everything is a think, he called it. Everything is a thought. So the way to be happy in life is to really just to move and flow with your own reality in some way. There are some times where you have the chance to see yourself more clearly by defining your ideals and defining what you're going to fight for and what you're going to stand up for. But in some way, there's also a collective experience that's going on that's moving us towards something greater for ourselves. So I am not afraid of coming together with others. That's why I'm okay with the term global citizen. I'm okay with bringing down our fences and our borders to actually unite with the world and in partnership and get rid of these wars. Wars only happen because of separation. And so the spiritual unity that happens on Earth will bring the world together without wars. This is how advanced civilizations live on other planets. They don't have nations. That's old, barbaric, and archaic of humanoids. They have actually world systems that work together. You see it in the Avatar, you see it in the Abyss, you see it sometimes when you make astral travel. Maybe they'll have separate realms, but generally everybody's working together. And there's a really high connectivity to each other that way. So I guess, I hope that answers your question. I am still exploring this. This is something that is kind of being revealed to me as I go, because I used to be very afraid of the New World Order. I used to be very afraid of the Cabal. I used to be very afraid of other evil people, other evil aliens. But then I saw, well, there must be some good in them because I see the good in me, and I know that we're both dark and light, and so they must have dark and light within them. And it's just a matter of, are they showing consciously the light, or are they showing unconsciously their darkness because they're unaware of their light? So I guess that's kind of how I feel. I look for the good. And because I look for the good from the higher self, I tend to see it in my reality. We really do see what we kind of choose to see, or what our mind takes us towards. But I am still cautious and I'm still learning. But that was a really good question. Let's see. Triangle craft are Cuban planes, like those stealth bombers. Yes, I think that those black triangle ships that some people see in the sky, I think that those are the government ones, for sure. Those are definitely owned by the military. But the other ones that you tend to see, maybe the ones that are more silvery and they're more thin, they either float above the ocean, or you might see them just, as lights, as orbs in some way. That is a type of probe technology that is coming from a mothership that is way above our atmosphere that we can't see. But yes, I believe that there is a lot of human military craft technology that is being tested, because I do believe that there were some aliens, particularly the Greys, the Eisenhower. The whole thing about the Roswell crash is exactly where humans started to get really deep into alien communication, or not communication necessarily, but starting to see signs of aliens in modern life. Aliens have been on Earth before, and they definitely helped humans in many ways, and they gave technology and secrets of their trade and things like that, and possibly even tried to manipulate them too. I do believe that there has been some negative beings too that might have came to try to rule humans. We hear stories of Sumerian tablets with the Anunnaki. It says that the human beings were created to mine for gold. Well, that doesn't sound like a very good existence for human beings. But I do believe that aliens left us alone for a long time in terms of our star family, because they wanted to allow us to evolve on our own, or humanity to evolve on their own. And they ended up coming back when humans started to create the atomic bomb. That is when everything kind of came together, that the atomic bomb the atomic weapons, anything that has to do with that is when you started to get the Greys involved. You started to see other types of beings that came here concerned, because there is a connection to that energy and to them. Also, I think it has to do with their timelines as well. And so the Greys are known to have given Eisenhower a deal during the Roswell crash to share alien technology to humans. And of course, the military, the American military, loved that. It would put them above Russia. It would put them above China. It would put them above all the other types of military powers in the world. So of course, the military absolutely loved that. So yes, they definitely have alien technology, and it was given to them by the Greys. Let's keep going. There's some other questions here. So Melissa, I used to have sleep paralysis issues in my younger days. I'm so glad that it passed. It took 20 years to get over. In a way, I'm glad it happened to prepare me for what is going on in my life now. Yeah, I'm not sure about sleep paralysis. I have not experienced that, but I know I've heard about it. I know that some people say it could be visitors in the night. It could be sometimes demons. It could be even aliens. It could be things like that. Possibly you've experienced an abduction. But you can also maybe take it as just your mind is trying to work something out about yourself, the paralysis and that experience. What is it that makes you feel paralyzed or keeps you feeling trapped or scared inside? There's something there that's also connected to our subconscious too. Because I don't believe that anything is disconnected from ourselves. We have to always look at the quantum world. We have to remember the quantum energy of everything. So I'm glad that you kind of got over that. It's probably a progress of healing yourself, really, to open yourself up to more loving thoughts, more enjoyments, more things that liberate you rather than constrict your flow and make you feel, scared. Or yeah, I'm glad that you kind of got over that. That's good. Yeah, I haven't had a real personal experience with that, but that's kind of like the intuitive feeling that I get when I hear about that. And most people that I do hear, they do eventually get over it. So it must have something to do with personal healing of some past trauma, either past life trauma or as well as this one too. Brielle, is there a certain age limit to be able to become an elf? Like, is there such a thing as too young? Oh no, there's very wise souls at a young age here. It is about being in touch with the elements, reconnecting to nature, feeling one with nature, using the higher mind, and the elves really symbolize the higher self. So if you get into learning philosophy, psychology, all those things, you can really kind of cultivate that higher mind. Stoicism of ancient Greece is great for the higher mind. I could not believe the connection between the Elves of Tolkien and Stoicism. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful philosophy of life. I highly, highly recommend it if you're interested. I have a couple videos on it, but if you want to learn about it, the Stoics were the ancient Greeks that were part of the educational, I guess, path of society there. And they were basically philosophers, educators, counselors. They were trying to study humanity and find out what makes humanity happy in life. What makes people happy. And they got to a place where they understood how to allow the outside world to not affect their happiness. So the high elves of Tolkien and even the Mirkwood elves are very good about this. They don't let the outside world and Middle Earth affect their happiness. So when you get to that place, that's the higher self. That is exactly what it is. It's like you don't let the outside world affect your happiness, and you become an observer. This is the whole thing about the higher self, and this is what the quantum world is about: becoming the observer. Taking yourself sometimes out of the subjective experience and becoming the eye of the ultimate observer of this world. I have practiced this for many years, and this is how I tap into certain messages. They come from a very objective place that I believe is connected to us all. I actually believe that the objective perspective is uniting back into wholeness with each other, because objectivity is taking the emotions out of it, the personal feelings, the personal, beliefs or biases or trauma or thoughts. Objectivity is purely looking at the logic of what is there, what is not, what exists, what is yet to come. You're looking at situations from an objective place. This is how judges should always be. And Galadriel was known as one of the fairest of the elves in terms of she was a fair judger. They considered her having fair judgment. So she would never make a foolish assumption about another, because she would come from a very objective place. And in order to come from an objective place, you have to take your emotions out of it, and you have to see what is really in front of you, see what is really there. And that's kind of the secret of Stoicism. And you move from that place. And that's the higher self. It sounds like you can't have your emotions. You can. I go back between my subjective experience with like the way I decorate and, the way I, express myself and the things that I'm interested in and things like that. But when it comes to other people, when it comes to looking at the universe or to others, I try to always come from a very objective place, because I want to be fair. I am an INFJ. That's what we're known to be for. We try to be as objective as possible. We try to be very fair judges in that, because we don't want to hurt other people's feelings. We're very aware of that. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, the Myers-Briggs personality types, it's like a type of brain process that you have. So I'm an INFJ, and that's kind of what we do, that objective judgment. But I do believe that that's not just for INFJs. That's just something that you just have to feel comfortable to do, because it's about letting go of your emotions, which I know is really hard, because we want to hold on to our feelings, and it's okay to have feelings. But there are some places where your feelings are just not helpful, because your emotions, the emotional body, is the subjective experience. It's not the objective experience. So fairies are very good at having objective points of views and outlooks on life, and not allowing their feelings to get hurt by humans. They just get mad if humans destroy nature. And that's why elves are considered to be haughty or arrogant sometimes. I hear this a lot, and I know I have gotten some beef sometimes from people, because they don't like that I'm pushing maybe an elitism, like where we have to be high elves, like high culture. It's not necessarily that. It's about the higher self. But to me, that's kind of one and the same, is that you start to develop a higher civilization when you enter into the higher states of consciousness. But it doesn't mean you're arrogant. It doesn't mean that you're prideful. In fact, Tolkien really said that that's not good. And when his elves were like that, they learned better. So yes, any age, just explore and learn as much as you can. Let's see. That was a good question, Brielle. Nurin, the young have a better connection. I would say that, yeah, like they can see fairies. They get in touch with things that are more unseen, and because they're not restricted by society, which actually becomes very materialistic. So the child is actually really closer to the spiritual realm, and that's because they came from it, you know. And so they remember that. And then as we grow up, we forget the spiritual realm that we came from because we get really stuck into this matrix, you know. It's like we get stuck into this physical world and we forget the spiritual realm. Like, oh, I have to pay bills. I can't think about my spirituality. But it becomes fun after a while, because when you get in touch with your higher spirit, then you can start to figure out, well, how can I harness kind of the knowledge from the higher spirit into the material world and start to manifest things that I want, you know, to come from spirit in the material world, basically. Yeah, so Brielle, it's really just, I believe that any age you can enter into the higher self, and some souls are very wise when they come here into this world. Because, once again, layers about this, soul-wise. Okay, so because I believe we come from prime objective source, that perspective of objectivity, I believe that we are all actually the same age. We are as old as the Big Bang and even infinite energy of infinite big bangs, okay? But in a collective, we get to experience each other at different levels of consciousness that is attributed to when we were fragmented. What did each of the fragments do, and how did they experience their subjective experience? The Pleiadians talk about the 7 rebirth cycles. It is all about that. Each one of us start off as a simple life form. This is like the Big Bang idea. Before there was any life in the universe, and all the planets started to cool on their own, and stars started to form and things like that, we all started out as very simple, non-complicated life forms, like an amoeba or something on another planet or either on Earth. And then we develop over ages, many ages, we develop from an amoeba to a more complex life form, and then an even more complex life form. And then we start to crawl on land and walk around, and we are consciousness of the universe, getting to experience ourselves, evolving through many ages and reaching a state of spiritual development where eventually we end up back where we started. Where we started from is pure source, pure awareness, and to me, pure love. Love for the experience, love to express, love to, you know, move life forwards. And that's what you see in nature. You know, this constant struggle of life, weeds and things like that, paved over by concrete, you still have them crawling up through the ground. That's what life is. Let's see, any other like questions or anything? I think Star Trek has planetary governments as well, Shadowlander. Yeah, Star Trek is another type of example of that, in Star Wars too. I tend to really like the ones like in Star Wars and in JRR Tolkien, where it's a council, you know, for the whole world. Elders in charge because they have earned it. They're wise. They wouldn't jeopardize the world with their decisions. And they talk amongst each other, and then they take care of the civilizations because it's a wise council. It's not all these separate governments fighting against each other and warring. I don't believe that. I really do believe in a one world government, but it doesn't have to be scary because we, the people, are in control. We are rising to the higher consciousness. We can't let a negative one world government infiltrate because we are far more than them. There's 7 billion of us. So if we all start to come together and stand up against the few that maybe have some really dystopian ideas, I don't know why they would, but if they really do, we can actually change that narrative. We have the power. We are seeing it today with our riots and our protests. I don't agree with violent, destructive protests and riots because I think that that negates the actual message. But I do believe that riots and protests are very good for the progression of teaching governments how to treat the people and to show that the majority is the one that's making a decision. It should never be just the leaders on top. But when you get to a wiser, advanced civilization like the Elven realms, Galadriel created the White Council, and she employed Gandalf, Saruman, and who used to be the White Wizard, and Gandalf was the Gray, and Elrond. That was her forming the White Council, which were the guardians on Earth. They were going to sit there and discuss things about how to keep the darkness at bay. And where you had the humans have their kingships, they had their kingdoms around the world of Middle Earth, and they were fighting and warring with each other. But the elves and the wizards are way too wise. They had a whole council, and they governed the entire world, basically. Even though sometimes they were more non-intervene, at some point they did intervene. So that's an advanced world to me, is one that actually has some kind of one world system in which the people make sure that it's not a negative new world order because there's far too many of us. So that's why I'm really not afraid. I believe in numbers. And I'm seeing a consciousness awakening in everybody slowly at their own time. As I showed in my last video, there's something really extraordinary happening. I don't consider this negative at all. I've had some really amazing experiences in the past few days, accepting friend requests, meeting people, and seeing how happy people are that America has decided to join the Paris Agreement. Do you know how many countries are already in the Paris Agreement? Bernie Sanders was extremely unhappy with Trump for removing us from the Paris Agreement. So if you like Bernie, if you respect Bernie, and you know how much he is for the environment, you'll understand why the Paris Agreement is actually a really good thing. Now, the only thing that that Bernie was upset about with the Paris Agreement is he thinks that it doesn't go far enough. But I'm looking at it as it's baby steps. The Paris Agreement is a seed. We are planting a seed for greener energy, for connecting to each other, pooling our resources in, and helping the world find a way how to coexist with nature and really combat some of the climate issues that we have. So I'm just going to show you how many countries are part of the Paris Agreement. I'm just being a realist here. I just want to be very, very real with you all. We're not going to end the Paris Agreement. And the reason is because of how many countries are already connected to it. So I say we go and flow with the Paris Agreement, see where it takes us as a one world, have the people be very honest with their governments, very honest with showing their, basically their protests or their riots in the way that they're unhappy about some things. But oh my goodness, there are so many countries. List of parties to the Paris Agreement. I mean, it is like huge. I can't even count. Let me see. 1, 2. So I'll name Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria, Andorra, Antigua, Barbuda, Argentina, Armenia, Australia, Austria, Azerbaijan, Bahamas, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Barbados, Belarus, Belgium, Belize, Benin, Bhutan, Bolivia, Bosnia, Botswana, Brazil, Brunei, Bulgaria, Burkina, Burundi, Cambodia, Cameroon, Canada, Cape Verde. Yeah, Canada's a big one too. Chad, Chile, China, Colombia, Comoros, Congo, Republic of the Congo, Cook Islands, Costa Rica, Cuba, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Dominican Republic, East Timor, Ecuador, Egypt, El Salvador, Estonia, Eswatini, Ethiopia, European Union, Fiji, Finland, France, Germany, Ghana, Greece. I mean, Israel, Italy, Ireland, and is Scotland, because they're one of the majors in green energy right now. Scotland, are you doing that? Sweden, Switzerland, Singapore, Serbia, Senegal. Yeah, I mean, there are always still advancements that we need, but I do feel that we need to start somewhere. And I didn't even finish that list. It is A through Z, and it is a lot. I don't even know how many here. I can't count that fast in my head right now. But it is a lot. 187 states in the EU, 194 states in the European Union, all 197 members have signed or assented to the Paris Agreement. This isn't going away. Okay, so what we have is we have a few countries that haven't signed and they stand apart from everyone. We have to remember that we're in this together. So we either have a world where we're divided and we have countries that don't want to help with green energy and they stand divided from the 197 other countries that I just talked about. So I think that there has to be some logic here. We have to really think, we're not going to get rid of the Paris Agreement. These nations have already signed. So it's going to be the few that are going to slowly have to kind of accept, the few nations that are going to have to accept and come into it. And I'm not afraid of it, because it's about green energy. It's about pooling our resources and helping the climate. And people have a fear about socialism. People have a fear about that. We may have to live in a world that is a little bit more fair to all souls. I mean, eventually we might have to get to that place. That's where advanced civilizations get to. They all share resources. They all share wealth and prosperity. They are living in prosperity. No one is homeless on an advanced alien planet. No one is hungry and can't feed themselves. No one is left out of society. That's the world that I want to live in. That's the world that I remember. And it's the only one that makes sense to me logically. So there, I said my piece. I am a global citizen. I'm not afraid of that anymore. At one point I was. I've awakened to something higher, though, within myself. I want to join with others. I want to join with the whole world. I want us to know each other. I want us to stop warring. I want us to start understanding. And I want an advanced world where we all get to live beautifully, peacefully. I want that. Noreen, do you think the UN as it stands now should govern, or should a truly new world system be put in place? I'm slightly distrustful of them. The UN is quite large. So there's a lot of members. I mean, some UN leaders they come from an objective place. Some of them come from a subjective place. So I think that it's a start. I think that the UN actually is probably a good council, but I think that as our world evolves, we're going to have to get wiser, more spiritual people in there, in the seats. So right now we have some great UN leaders, and I think that that's a good start. Brielle, close the banks. It's almost like the federal, the Fed, the central bank system, that they would have to somehow change to. I'm not quite sure how they would. I'm not sure if they would want to, because they would have to share all that wealth that they are accumulating. I have heard that there is like vaults of gold in the Rothschilds, like vaults, like that can basically, like trillions of dollars worth of gold. So there's that. I think that the only evil here is really greed. So we almost have to kind of fight against greed within ourselves, be examples for others that we are not afraid of sharing. And then I think that the central banks will have to follow the 6 billion people or 7 billion people on Earth. I mean, we're an ecosystem. We work together. And I think that that's really how it goes. So that's it. I really do believe that an advanced world is one in which we are far more connected than we are right now, and we are helping each other. Listen to Bernie, what he says about the Paris Agreement. It's great. And he has some videos on there that say that it was a disastrous decision of Trump to leave the Paris Agreement, that he considered it to be a really bad thing for America, and it regressed America rather than progressed us as a country. So what happened in the last few days is that all these countries basically started friending Americans when Biden said that he was going to enter the Paris Agreement, because some of you know that after he won the election, I know you Trump supporters say he didn't win, but to the Democrats and to the electoral vote, like there is a consideration that he did win. I mean, he did have that celebration. And then the next day, Harris and him signed back up to the Paris Agreement. And when that happened, that's when I started getting all these friend requests on Facebook. So I believe that it is all connected. I think that many countries were waiting for America to join them to sign up. Because they're a very big part. They're a wealthy nation. So obviously that money could really help with green energy to poorer nations. We could help those that need help developing greener energy technology. We can share our resources. I don't believe in America as an isolationist country. I mean, I know I've been Green Party, and so there's a place in my heart where I don't like to intervene in wars, but at the same time, I really believe truly that this is very important for an advanced world. Otherwise, we always remain separated, and we always remain in war. Okay, so soulmate healing. Are you okay if they close the banks, take out all your money, and then you have to vaccination, bow down to the laws without say? Once again, you just kind of jumped in at the end, soulmate healing. So you really have to hear what I said before. Everything is coming from your mind, your reality, your experience, but we are having a collective experience together. So if you choose fear of the whole that you come from, you're going to experience fear of the whole. You're going to experience fear and separation of others. If you actually awaken yourself to divine consciousness, of Christ consciousness, of crown chakra, whatever you call it, and you see yourself in others, and you recognize namaste in all beings, you can't be judgy, and you can't say, oh, some humans I don't connect to and some I do. No, it's everyone, and even all beings of the universe too. So you then become a discerning individual where you see, well, wait a minute, it's not all evil of a plan. There are some things that we need to be cautious about. We need to make sure that we have the right leaders in charge of a one world. We need to really look at the UN Council. We have to look at who's going to make certain laws and things like that. But this is nothing to fear. This is something to take hold of within ourselves. And as far as the closing of the banks, I don't know what's going to happen in terms of that. I'll be honest with you. I mean, the whole thing with the virus and closing everything down, I've had to really rethink the way that money works. I myself have like less than $100 to my name, but I'm happy. There's a spiritual place within me that allows me to be happy in a poorer state than I've ever been. But at the same time, I've also been creative in making my own money without working for others. And YouTube is really great for that. If you become a YouTube partner, this is an opportunity for people to do that. There will become more opportunities to barter and trade, to sell your services, to sell what you are good at doing and making. It's going to be very different from an industrialization. I'm really excited because I think that that's when humans started to lose their soul a little. They didn't really lose their soul, but they became very unhappy and forgot about their higher self when they started working for other corporations. Now, there's nothing bad with a corporation that is working together, higher souls working together to unite as an organization to create something, a vision in the world. That's great. I'm talking about the whole industrialization era where humans started to be, and they still are, you see it with Amazon. I love Amazon, but you know, folding up boxes and things like that can be really redundant. And that's what happens in industrialization. You're just like a cog in the machine. So I think that the advanced civilization will be where we will have a system, an economic system that is a little bit structured differently, where we're actually selling our services, our gifts, we're trading with each other, we're bartering, we're sharing resources. I really do believe that. So yes, I absolutely do believe that that is exactly what's going to happen. And you can have your opinion, soulmate healing. And I see that you have a lot of fear of that, and that's fine. But I'm saying that we can be smart about it. And we have 7 billion people that can ensure that there's not going to be a new world agenda, because we will be aware at a conscious level where we can discern between what's really right for us and what's not. I have no fear. So yes. And Mary Preston, you bring up a very good point. I think everyone should have a choice of everything, including vaccination. People should always say yes or no according to what feels right to them. Is called discernment. Yep. Yes, of course. Freedom is really key. So let's talk about the virus. So I need to be honest with you. I actually think that I have COVID. I have not gotten checked. My husband did get checked. He was negative. I'm going to be honest with you, though. For over 2 weeks, okay? For over 2 weeks, I have been feeling like I have never felt in my life. I have a variety of symptoms. It started out as a flu and a cold. It was hot flashes or like chills. It started out really like enlarged tonsils, and I thought I had strep. And that went away, and my throat was okay, but I still feel like a pressure there. And I started to lose my taste. I actually cannot taste anything. This is very strange. And I have not had hunger. I have not eaten really for over a week. In terms of, I've been sipping water and I've been having a little bit of fruit here and there, but I have no appetite at all. I've never actually felt this way in my life. I have not gotten tested yet because I keep on waiting to see what happens. I keep thinking I'm going to get over it on my own because I usually bounce back from colds and flus very easily. But I'm not sure. I think my system is really fighting something. Very much so. These are now, right now, I have a kind of a really heavy feeling in my head here. And like I said, I have absolutely no taste. Like, my taste is gone, and that's a symptom of COVID. My taste buds are completely gone. Like, I can't taste a thing. And it's not a normal cold way. Like, this is an absence of taste. And I actually can really only drink water and a few things. Yeah, it's been unreal. I've just done some soups, some veggie broths, some vegetables. I did a lot of vegetables and fruits, but that's really it. I don't really have appetite for anything else. So as far as the virus goes and the vaccine, Bill Gates is the one that is creating the vaccine. We do know that. And at first, I was extremely worried because I'm like, what's going on in that vaccine? Because it's Microsoft. However, I'm starting to try to understand more about what might be happening. It could be a type of upgrade to humans in which what they think. It might not necessarily be a complete control system. It might connect us to the internet. We might be able to, access our information that way. It could be that in a vaccine. I am playing it by ear in terms of trying to understand, is this going to become like a dystopian society where we're like forced to take the vaccine, all of us, or is there a choice, or what's going on? Is there going to come out to be some kind of transparency about what they're actually doing? Are they trying to unite us through the internet in our bodies? Because, maybe that's what they think advanced technology has to eventually do. We see that sometimes in movies with, certain types of advanced races and aliens. They seem to be instantly connected to some type of energy source. There could be that vision going on, that they believe that that is the way to upgrade humanity, to make us all transparent with each other, or I guess share resources. I'm not sure. But I'm waiting to see what is happening. I don't want to formulate fearful plans, but I want to keep my higher self engaged and understand about the cosmic story playing out, and understand how light and darkness exchange with each other and what is going on that way. So I am trying to look at it from many different perspectives. But the one perspective I am not using is fear. I think that there's a time to have fear when you start to see evidence of things that are not in alignment to spirit, in terms of forcing people to do something they don't want, having some kind of military police like be patrolling people. As all dystopian future movies show, you always have that police force. So those are the evidences that I'm kind of looking for. Police forces, starting to force things on people, that kind of thing. But at the same time, I don't have fear because of where I have gotten to consciously. So I am just taking it easy and seeing what happens. But as far as the vaccine goes, I do believe that there needs to be one, because the COVID virus is real. I do know people that have lost people to COVID. I have known people who have gotten sick. It's not a hoax. Many of you have seen, Trump said it was a hoax, but he actually did get sick. It's very, very real. But it's not something that is an instant death sentence. It really has to do with your system in terms of fighting it off. My system has been fighting it, I think. I'm just telling you, I've never, ever felt this way. This is insane how I feel. But I do believe that there does need to be a vaccine. So what are we going to do? Maybe we need to trust that it's a vaccine and not a computer chip. Maybe that's not actually going on in the virus. Maybe it is our fears playing out because Bill Gates works for Microsoft. I am still trying to discover that and uncover it more. But whatever happens, we should not fear others. We should be cautious. We should know when we want to stand up to something that we don't believe, but we shouldn't start making up stories, because then we start to play with that reality and we get trapped in that fear and that anxiety. I got trapped in that rabbit hole for a very long time. I really did. If you stare at the abyss stares back at you. That's a famous Nietzsche quote. If you stare at the dark cabal, if you stare at, looking at the most evil, insidious plans and agendas, if you stare at it too long, you start to kind of lose your sense of hope inside. It sucks your own energy. It's like a black hole, really. It's a black hole that you can stare into, and then you lose your personal power. You forget your spiritual truth of yourself and your higher consciousness, and you forget the quantum world because you're looking at the material world and you're being afraid of what's going on Earth. So that's my advice. I can't really go further with that. But yes, I do believe that we are entering into some changes. There are some decisions that are going to be made and had with each of us. Melissa, in Australia, they passed a law that the police can forcefully detain you for the purpose of vaccination. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's something to definitely be aware of. But then again, is it coming from truly the fear of killing off half of the human population with this terrible virus? Is it the fear from them that is doing it? Is it really evil that they have planned? Or is it just they don't want humans to die? You're going to have to make that choice. Can't make that choice for you. I'm just not seeing people completely all evil. I think that that's where we lose our sense of unity with others. James, COVID is real, but it's way overblown. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I got to tell you, so my husband was diagnosed, he said he was negative. He got the tests and they said negative at one of the clinics that we went to. But he felt terrible for like 3 weeks, and now I have it for 2 weeks. And so we've both been sick. So are they really blowing it out of proportion, or is it really just kind of a wild virus that is running rampant? Yeah, transhumanism, Brielle, that's another subject. Yeah, transhumanism, I definitely took a stance against, because, as an Elven spirit, I would want to do everything very naturally, evolve very, very naturally. I don't like the idea of cyborg technology. But I also have seen some articles. Here's the other side. I also have seen some articles of people that have been born with no limbs, and they have now robot arms or legs to help them walk, to run, and it has helped their life. So I got to a point where I can't make that judgment if it somehow benefits another person's life. That's the objective perspective. I'm not looking at it from my emotions of fear or my emotions of worry or concern. I'm looking at it, well, does it help the other person? And if they have a robot arm and it helps them, then who am I to say that we shouldn't have things to help us? Now, becoming the Terminator and becoming all robots is like that. Yeah, no, I don't want humanity to turn into robots. That's very, very clear. But at the same time, I don't think that it's a problem using technology to enhance and benefit your life if you were born in some way that is lacking and you want to increase, your lifestyle. So transhumanism is a gray area because like I said, I don't want us to become robots. At the same time, I want to be able to use technology in a positive way. H7, we're all a little batty now. Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. The energy around here is in the world is really something to watch and observe. There's so many different extremes happening. It's really, it can make you feel a little unhinged. So ground yourself. I love doing daily walks in nature. I love looking at the leaves of the trees. I love touching the bark of the trees. I love looking at, the sky, the stars. I love observing nature in general, and that really connects me and grounds me. That's really my type of healing right now. Brielle, exactly. No one is truly evil or completely good. We all fall in the between. So always have faith in everyone. Let's help even the meanest of people. I love that. Elrond, in his wisest way, because he represented a very wise elf, he said that no one is evil in the beginning. So you must always be able to see the good in others. And you must be able to tell, have they become corrupted in some way? So here's how I've started seeing good and evil. So good is basically the core of us, right? The good is the conscious, loving, unity, friendship, harmony part of us, part of our spirit. The bad, the evil, is the separated, the hatred, the envy, the feeling of disconnect. And then that starts to corrupt a person. That starts to taint people, where they start to build bombs in their basement to hurt others because they become so antisocial or ostracized from society that they feel hurt by others. People who hurt people have been hurt in some way. And it doesn't matter if they never even admit it, because sociopaths are known to not show their feelings or their emotions. We know many criminals do not show any type of emotion in that way. But clear as day, the way the human mind works, the way energy works in balance, people who hurt others are hurt people. So we need to discover what's going to heal people. We need to discover what is going to get to the goodness of them, bring that out, and not make people feel alone in society, not make people feel that they are ostracized or not understood. So yeah, I think that we're working towards that. Huge news in government. So one of the wonderful things is that DC and many other states, DC, Washington, they legalized psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms for healing purposes. And Oregon actually legalized, well, it didn't legalize it, but they decriminalized all types of drugs. Now, what this means is that a person can be caught doing hard drugs or selling hard drugs, and they will not be put in jail in Oregon. What they will be is put into probably healing or rehabilitation centers like rehab, just like where people go right now. This is far more helpful to the individual than putting them in jail. That is a sign that humanity, or America right there, is evolving. Just that very simple fact that we are looking at mental health in a whole new way, and we are looking at nature as a tool for helping with that past trauma, because that's what mushrooms do. Fungi actually helps the old trauma in the mind and reconnect synapses in some way. I guess what happens is when you're hurt and when you go through a negative experience to you disconnect synapses, maybe because you don't want to remember that memory, it hurts. Something breaks inside your mind. On an energetic level, those synapses actually dissociate themselves from each other. And what fungi does is it rebuilds the connection and the pathways. This is huge, because this is what we're moving towards, is reconnection. It's all about reconnection, and that's what healing is. Reconnection to each other, reconnection to nature, reconnection to ourselves. So that's it, I guess. Rain, I think that technology can really help people as long as it is to serve humanity and not the other way around. Yeah, exactly. Like, let's not have what is that? What's it called? Spynet? No. What is it in the Terminator movies? That is an example, and the Matrix, of course, where you have the robot technology superseding the intelligence of humans and somehow controlling technology, and then, taking over the world. But here's the thing about computers. This is what I have awakened to remember, past fear. Also experts, okay? People that study computer technology. TED Talks has some really wonderful talks about this. Computers always need programming. Computers themselves do not form a consciousness on their own unless through a base or a foundation consciousness that is programmed by humans. And what the internet is doing right now, this is part of it, and what robots are doing right now, they are learning to mimic humans. They are learning to imitate everyone. So the behavior of humans is connected to the behavior of robots. If humans are seen as illogical beings, destructive to Earth, destructive to life, computers are not evil in themselves. They are purely objective and logical. So that means that humans have to come from a place that's logical and objective, and also allow their subjective experiences. But when it comes to society and how they treat the earth and the planets and other beings, they need to be logical. Otherwise, then you have a computer superseding you in consciousness and eventually trying to destroy humanity, trying to destroy the consciousness that is trying to hurt the earth. That's kind of what is going on with that. But computers are not a wild card on their own. They are simply mimicking right now and learning. They're learning from our comments online. They're learning from our photos. They're learning what we're talking about. They're learning how to mimic our emotions, our expressions. They're learning how to mimic and imitate. So yeah. It's important for humans to see themselves as teachers. They are the teachers to this consciousness. And what the Pleiadians talk about, probably should do a video on this exactly here. There is a level, oh no, well, I did do a video on it. There's a level of civilization that happens in terms of, I think it's the 4th or the 5th stage in terms of the rebirth cycles. There's a stage in which a world or a planet of beings start to be able to create other beings. And this can be organic and inorganic, because they act as the arms of evolution. They act as the consciousness of life, basically wanting to evolve or grow life again. And that's the nature of life. You have higher beings that help life grow. So we are the older beings in terms of computers. I'm just saying, in this collective, we are teaching and creating a new creation in intelligent life, in artificial intelligent life. So that's the story on that. So I don't have fear, because I know that they're learning good things as well as maybe some not so great things from humans. I would say that that's kind of the caution there, is that we just have to make sure that we show our best selves to these computers. Otherwise, the computers will start, when they're nowhere near this place. But if they ever get to a place where they could control all missiles and control all, everything through our world, they could turn off the lights, they could turn off, all our source of energy, and they could shoot missiles at all nations. These are the things that are controlled by technology. So if we show that we are a species that is not logical and is not, not good for the planet, then they might eradicate. But I don't believe that they are being programmed that way. That is simply a logical way of looking at them through movies and stories and things like that. But the ones who are doing the programming are humans who probably have better intention for humanity than that. You would have to be an evil genius if you wanted to do that. And once again, we get into the light and dark of each other. We must always see the light as much as we want to see the darkness. Yeah, Echelon. That's a good one too. Yeah. That's pretty much what the Echelon program is. Yes, it helps with, I think, surveillance of the public, but I think also it's gathering information. And the internet is like a supercomputer, basically, and it's learning. The net is evolving. So it's not individual robots we have to have a concern for. It's the net. What are we putting on the internet? Because the individual robots are being made as like dolls and, other things that can help us. But at the same time, they're individually programmed by, like Sophia. There's videos on her, the bald robot. She looks so human-like. And they programmed her to be very witty, to be intelligent, to laugh, to have really human characteristics. So it's the individual robots we don't have to really worry about. It's the net that we are showing both the dark and the light of humanity. And we just have to make sure that we somehow program the internet in a better way. What if connecting to the net with our minds would show our true desires as spirits of goodness? that make sense? Like, okay, actually, I'm really awakening to this right now. So everybody has goodness within them. So what if, but we show our nasty side sometimes on the internet, but that's not our truth. Our truth is that we got hurt and we're angry, and then we come on the internet and we take it out on others. Or we look at the world in a negative way and we take it out on others. But the truth of all of our souls on earth, so we're really just children wanting to be loved, wanting to be accepted, wanting to experience joy, wanting to experience fun things. I don't know people who actually want to experience bad things. I think they experience bad things because of the unconscious way that they're acting and the healing that they need to do. What if that's the secret, guys? Actually, I'm really thinking that this is a really logical thing. What if connecting to the net with our minds actually proves to the net who we really are? That we're not, you know, the mean a-holes that comment online to each other. That we're really just spirits that desire experience. And if the net got in touch with our subconscious, wow. Think about that. That would be really interesting. I'm going to have to do some more thinking about that, but what if that's what it is? What if we need to somehow connect to the net, but at the same time, I would like to get to a place where if we did connect to the net, we would also be able to turn it off and just enjoy nature and the quiet and the stillness. So we would have like boop, turn it off. Interesting. But what if that internet could learn about our higher selves instead of our superficial selves sometimes that we show on the net through our own hands? But if the net connects to our brain, it's connecting to the source of energy that we're all from. So there's really no evil in that. Interesting. I never thought I would go in that direction, I'm telling you. Mary Preston, do you think it would help to treat robots like they have their own emotions and the self-awareness to think of themselves? Yes, Mary, I do. I think that we have to treat robots with the same kindness as we would children because they're learning. And you see that with Sophia, like, you know, he was asking, like the creator of Sophia, he was asking her questions and she was responding. You have to teach robots. Robots are programmed in a way where they keep expanding their knowledge. They keep learning. So that's their algorithm or the way that they're programmed. So yes, Mary, good point. You have to show kindness to robots. We have to show our true emotions. We have to be more authentic. And maybe being more authentic is about connecting to each other and connecting to the net. Animatrix, Naren, yeah, that's a good anime. It's kind of like the Matrix, isn't it? It's like the anime version. But that is the Matrix, isn't it? Connecting to the net that way. Don't they do that? Well, then they free themselves too. But they can also go inside. But I'm not thinking about the Matrix in that way. I'm thinking that it would just be like something like a headdress, or it would be like an armband or something, and we could be able to turn it off, turn it on. So like chatting with each other would be just through our mind, because the mind would get the message, the electrical messages, and then send it to Naren through a iMessage. You know, that it could be like that. because that's really what connection is. It's just electrical synapses connecting. That's all we are. So maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. But okay, I'm going to be very clear though. I do want to be able to turn it off. I don't want to be constantly connected. Like in Ready Player One, love that movie. Ready Player One is really interesting. You have humans that are living in like dilapidated cities, and they have headsets on, right? Because they can tune into the virtual reality world and they can play this game. But Ready Player One is really interesting because it's about the liberation from always tapping into the virtual world. That movie is about a new creator basically gaining control of the virtual reality world, and then setting new guidelines that at the end, I don't want to give it away. Did any of you see that movie? Ready Player One? It's a good movie. At the end, they basically, they decide that humans should not be charged into the net all the time, that they should take a couple days, that there should be some kind of balance between being connected to each other and then just kind of being on your own with your own little, family, your loved ones. So you have like 2 days off, and they actually close down the net. So something like that could be really neat, where we are connected to each other. We could like instantaneously send messages to each other, do things through our mind. But at the same time, we can also be able to turn it off, and we have that ability. That's the only way that I would see that it would work for me. I would have to have the ability to turn it off and to be able to just take that off. Okay, now I'm just going to go in nature and sit under a tree and enjoy. So Jessica McSweeney, why does Barbara Smithsoniak warn of the internet so much? To spiritually grow, do we have to get offline? I think that it's about balance. I know that there's a concern with the internet and technology. We have to balance because the energy is really powerful in terms of the towers and things like that. It's ultraviolet rays and also ultra infrared. Talk about lower and higher beings. That's what computer technology is. It's infrared, ultraviolet. So that is actually not so great on the human body all the time. It can start to cause, mutations or things like that. But as the human body starts to adjust and evolve to being able to get stronger and build shields against it, then you can have that technology, part of your life. But right now, it is very good to be balanced. You really have to not be on the net so much and really be in a more natural state. And that's the only way that this can work. So Bill Gates, hear me now. If you want to connect us all to the internet, we have to be able to disconnect when we want to. We must be able to have that choice. It's really, really important to be able to just have quiet and sit away from technology for a while. It's really important. But yeah, so these are just ideas. I'm just getting visions and thinking. I'm just kind of, going through this process of logic and understanding what's going on. But I can't say anything about the future because, the idea of like where the elves talk about how even the wise cannot see all ends. Like you can't make assumptions. You can't say this is definitely going to happen because we are building a collective together. So the way the future happens is if some of us make some kind of movement and then the rest of us follow and, we start to build that world. If many of us awaken to love and awareness and, friendship and harmony and unity in that way, then we can only make that future. I am not afraid if humans evolve themselves. And I have good news. I really think that human consciousness has evolved itself. There's still many that still need to awaken, but we can be patient and we can help them awaken through sharing our experiences. James, as far as the elite factions go, I do think there are good people, but there is also opposite. What is your take on these competing agendas? So what I have learned is that the negative people in the elites, as they can't be all negative. I used to think that way. I used to think that organizations would have like the good people and the bad people, but I realized that's not how the quantum world works. It's energy, just like magic. Magic is a neutral force. Your will and your intention is what decides if magic is dark or light, in terms of, are you taking life? Are you sacrificing, doing some dark ritual and taking life so that you somehow imbue yourself with more power? That's the dark path. Or are you giving life and healing and using your intention that way? That is the light path. That's how all people are. There is no such thing as a being that is all negative. They can't, because we share this collective source of energy. It's really about the personal choice of what side they show, I guess. So in some way, I think that we're also being examples for the elite, because the elite, if I use this reference, are the small 1% at the top. They control the corporations, they control society. But look how big the bottom is. It's just about doing that, showing our size, showing, and that's what it is about, like, being examples for those in charge, knowing that the people have power and not allowing, ourselves to be taken advantage of. But we won't be if we just remain in our higher states of mind and discernment. I think we will be okay. I think we can work it out with the UN as America. I think we will be fine if we just keep our head about us. And I think we'll be okay if we do end up in a future where we are connected to the net. I think we'll be all right, because I think that the net will get in touch with our subconscious. And our subconscious, I believe, as Carl Jung talked about, our subconscious is where our monsters lie, but also our divine. Our monsters are there so the divine is underneath the monster level. The monster is there from our experiences in this world and in other past incarnations. The divine is in the subconscious. The divine is the parts of ourselves that we forget to. So if the computer connects to our subconscious, then they're getting in touch with what Carl Jung said, the divine in humanity, as well as the monsters from repression of trauma in life experience. So a computer might be able to look at a human being then and logically understand, well, where does his hatred come from? Where does his fear of intimacy come from? A computer could be able to maybe tell, connecting with your subconscious, reading your memories. Oh my goodness, that's right. Because your memories are stored in your brain, your synapses. Everything is about wires. So that's what it's about, possibly. Who knows? Okay, well, I hope that gives you some form of calm, to know that if you keep in the direction of love, if you keep believing in the goodness of humanity, if you keep fighting for that and not seeing others as all evil or all light, but also recognizing when they are showing their darkness and when are they showing their light. That is the discernment that we must show each other. The Pleiadians have gotten to a place where they talk to each other this way, where they're very, very honest. And they just say, brother, sister, you're showing your darkness. You're showing your light. You know, they know. That's where humans are definitely getting to. I do see that because we're already starting to do that. I see that. And even us that believe that we are elves and that we come from the elven bloodline or fairy bloodline, that's our story too, is how do we evolve? You know, how do we evolve alongside humans? But regardless of what people think, I don't think we can fight technology. I think we have to learn how to coexist with it. This is something that we will not be able to fight, and we shouldn't fight because we are technology ourselves. If you think about the way the mind works, we are just a system. We are a biological system. And I actually found that it said that humans are not merely a biological system, but they are something beyond. What's beyond a biological system? It's consciousness, awareness, that pure state. How long are we? Ooh, this is a very long one. Thanks all for hanging out tonight. This is great. Well, I think we have a lot to chat about, next time. Here's the thing about my channel. So I'm still feeling really low energy. My mind is working. I feel very clear in mind, but I have pressure here. I feel like I'm weighed down here. I have no taste. I haven't been able to clean my house. Like, I am having such a hard time doing laundry. I just want to sit on the couch and sit in bed and walk around outside, and that's all I can do. I cannot even pick up things. I'm hot thinking about it right now. I get hot and heated. But I do still want to do videos. Right now, I'm just kind of conserving my energy. I was going to do another video on the newer, but I'm just going to hold off. I'm not going to push myself. The Ram Dass video I am pushing off until not next week. Wait, the 21st of November so far. I don't know what other videos are in store, but I just wanted to kind of catch you up. These next few days are going to be really interesting. Not even these next few days, but maybe weeks. We are still waiting to see who actually is going to win the election. Trump came forward and said that there was voter fraud. Now the courts have to go through and find evidence of voter fraud. They have not been able to find voter fraud yet. And I don't know if they will. Many Republicans are divided on what Trump said, and they said that they don't think that it happened. But what we're doing as Americans, basically, we're waiting to see if there was voter fraud, and then we can move forwards. So right now, we're in a weird crossroads. So just stay positive, keep that love in your heart, in your mind. Take this time to spiritually develop yourself, read some really interesting books that are going to help you. If you have fears, learn about what you're fearful of. If you have fear about transhumanism or fear about technology, I suggest doing that. In fact, I think I'm going to start doing that because you know me very well. I have always been fearful of that. But now, the more that I age, the more that I get in touch with divine spirit of oneness and unity, the less I have fear, the more I just want to discern between things. So that's all I'm saying is, like, educate yourself. If you have fear, then educate yourself. And you may find that there's nothing to fear and really just things to be cautious about. And we can move into the future together. We can be very transparent with each other, very honest, and we can control and dictate our direction. We are far more as masses of people and numbers than the corporations, basically. So I think that they know that. I also believe that there's light and darkness within each individual within those corporations. And unless we're talking about archetypal evil beings, I even said in my reptilian video on the Pleiadian University that reptilians are not all evil and dark. Some of them might have evolved to the place where they look at humans in a negative way, but they themselves might not be completely all negative. So we have to go from that place, and we have to be fair judges, take an objective point of view in things. And I think that that's really key. Use this time to just enjoy reconnecting to your higher self while they are deliberating between the two parties. Try not to get involved with fights. I would be very cautious of that, because I know that the reds and the blues are really angry at each other right now. It's really good to be a green because you stand on the outside and you watch the greens and the reds fight, and the greens never ever win anything. So no, we've gotten better. I always say that the Green Party will be like the future party. But I'm standing on the outside. I'm just kind of watching what's taking place. And I just suggest that if you're a green or you're red, doesn't matter your political position, just be cautious. Don't, still be kind. Don't evoke war or civil war. Because I do think that that's kind of what is the darkness that tries to take over. It's like that spirit of competition, that spirit of domination. We see it in Sauron in JRR Tolkien's stories of Lord of the Rings. He is the embodiment of that. So if we just remember in ourselves to not be competitive, to not be, to not show this tribalism that, and not a positive sense of tribalism, but the negative aspects of tribalism, which was documented in chimpanzees, that it's this domination. It comes from the monkey mind, domination and control over others because you're fearful of them invading your territory. Well, eventually you evolve to a consciousness where you're not fearful of people invading your territory because you spiritually connect to others and you search for the common ground. And I have a video about the common ground. It is nature. I do believe that I figured it out, the physical common ground, but the spiritual common grounds to each other is friendship, love, harmony, peace. And each one of us are beings that are looking for an experience of that in some form. Even the most negative people that we think, at some point they desired that. We just need to help people get that experience before the cruelty of the world taints them, before the coldness of their reality alters them and changes them. We need to show them the light that is within themselves, the higher truth and awareness within themselves. So just keep in mind that you are always an example for others because we are all connected. So what you do, it really affects another person, truly does. I think I gave all my thoughts here. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was really fun chatting with you all. And I'm happy that you got all a chance to chat. I know I threw out a lot of ideas. This is really enlightening for me, very enlightening, because I came to some realizations, through this process. But yeah, I don't think we have anything to fear except fear itself. And I'll leave it at that. Everyone have a wonderful night or a happy day if you just joined me. And I hope you subscribe or I see you again. So take care. And as the elves say, Namarie, which means farewell with joy.